evening, ladies and emperors. I just got back from Venice, and boy, are my arms tired.
Can you believe it? Mel Brooks, the comedy legend who made us laugh until our sides hurt, just spilled some serious tea at 98 years old. He named 6 actors he says he hated working with. Hated! Can you imagine? This guy who turned silly ideas into movie magic is finally telling the world about the stars who drove him up the wall. Some made him laugh too much, some were way too serious, and others? Well, they just clashed with his wild, funny style. This isn't about bad people. It's about the chaos, the fights, and the brilliance that made his movies unforgettable. So, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive into Mel Brooks's list of the 6 actors he hated and why they made his life so crazy. First up is Dom DeLuise. Now, Dom was a big, lovable guy with a laugh that could fill a room. He was in a bunch of Mel's movies, like Silent Movie, History of the World, Part 1, Spaceballs, and Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, not exactly. Dom had this problem. He couldn't stop laughing. I mean, this guy would crack up at everything. Someone made a funny face. Dom's laughing. Someone told a joke. Dom's on the floor. Even when the cameras were rolling, he'd lose it. Mel said directing Dom was like trying to keep a puppy calm during a fireworks show. They'd set up a scene. Mel would shout, "Action!" and Dom would already be giggling before he said a single word. In History of the World, there was this one scene where Dom only had one line. One! But Madeline Kahn, another star, raised her eyebrow in a funny way, and Dom laughed for 45 minutes straight. The whole crew had to wait until he could breathe again. Mel tried everything to keep Dom focused. He'd turn the camera away from him or tell other actors not to look at him. But nothing worked. Dom would see something funny, and boom, laughter explosion. Mel once said, "I yelled cut more times with Dom than anyone else." But here's the thing. When Dom finally got through a take, it was pure gold. His energy, his goofy charm, it lit up the screen. Off set, Dom was a sweetheart. He'd bring homemade pasta to share with everyone, like a big Italian uncle. Mel loved him like a brother, but on set, he drove Mel nuts. That's why Dom's on the list, not because he was mean, but because his laughs slowed everything down. Still, Mel knew those laughs made the movies better. He'd grumble, but he'd never trade Dom for anyone else. Next is Madeline Kahn, one of the funniest women to ever grace a movie screen. She was in Mel's biggest hits, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, High Anxiety, and History of the World, Part 1. Her characters, like the dramatic Lily von Stupp in Blazing Saddles, are still quoted today. She had this amazing voice, perfect timing, and a way of stealing every scene. But working with her? Oh boy, that was a challenge. Madeline was super picky. She didn't just follow the script. She questioned everything. If a line didn't feel right, she'd ask for a rewrite. If her costume wasn't perfect, she'd point it out. And if Mel gave her a note, she'd tilt her head and say, "Why?" It wasn't that she was trying to be difficult. She just wanted everything to be perfect. Mel said she'd show up late sometimes, strolling in all calm and smiley while everyone waited. That drove him bananas. During Blazing Saddles, she'd change her lines or try new ways to say them, even if Mel wanted it done the way they rehearsed. One time, he asked her to stick to the plan, and she just smiled and said she had a better idea. And you know what? She was usually right. Her ideas made scenes funnier, sharper. In Young Frankenstein, she played Elizabeth, this fancy dramatic fiancée, and she was flawless. But she'd argue about camera angles, lighting, even the furniture in a scene. Once she made Mel swap out a couch because it didn't fit her character's vibe. He thought she was being a diva, but when he saw the final shot, he had to admit, she was right. The new couch looked better. Madeline pushed everyone to work harder, including Mel. The crew would whisper about how intense she was, but they also knew she was a genius. Mel kept casting her, even though she made his days longer and tougher. Why? because she made every movie better. When he calls her one of the actors he hated, it's not real hate. It's the kind of frustration you feel when someone's so good, they make you rethink everything. Madeline was a perfectionist, and Mel loved her for it, even if it gave him headaches. Then there's Gene Hackman. This one's a bit different because Mel only worked with him once, in Young Frankenstein. Gene played a blind hermit in this super funny scene where he tries to help the monster but keeps messing up, like pouring hot soup on him. It's one of the best parts of the movie, and people still laugh at it today. But filming it? Not so funny. Gene was a serious actor. He'd won an Oscar, starred in huge dramas, and was known for being intense. Mel's sets, though, were like a circus, loud, messy, and full of jokes. Gene didn't vibe with that. He wanted everything planned out, every line perfect, every take clean. Mel, on the other hand, loved when things got a little wild. He'd tell actors to try something crazy or improvise a bit. Gene wasn't into that. He'd ask for more rehearsals, which slowed things down. He'd stay super focused while everyone else was cracking up between takes. Mel said Gene gave him a look every time someone messed up a scene, like he was thinking, "Why can't you all be professional?" It wasn't that Gene was mean, he was just used to a different way of working. Mel called him brilliant, but said their styles didn't match. It was like trying to mix a jazz band with a math teacher. The scene turned out amazing, though. Gene's serious approach made the hermit's goofy kindness even funnier. Mel respected him, but they never worked together again. Gene was too intense for Mel's wild world. Still, that one scene proves they could make magic, even if it was a bumpy ride. Now, let's talk about Cloris Leachman. She was another comedy genius in Mel's movies, like Young Frankenstein, High Anxiety, and History of the World, Part 1. Her role as Frau Blücher in Young Frankenstein, you know, the creepy housekeeper who makes horses neigh, is iconic. But Cloris was no pushover. She had strong opinions and wasn't afraid to share them. When Mel gave her direction, she didn't just say, "Okay." She'd ask, "Why do it that way?" or suggest something totally different. Sometimes she'd just ignore him and do the scene her way. Mel said it was like trying to steer a runaway train. In Young Frankenstein, Cloris wanted her character to be darker, more serious. Mel wanted her to be weird and funny. They'd go back and forth, debating every line, every look. It wasn't loud fighting, but it was constant. Cloris would question everything. Why her character moved a certain way. Why the lighting was like that. Even why a prop was in the scene. Mel said she made every day feel like a debate club. But here's the thing. Her ideas were often great. Sometimes her version of a scene was better than Mel's. Other times, he'd have to beg her to try it his way just once. In High Anxiety, she played Nurse Diesel, this creepy, controlling character, and she nailed it. But again, they clashed over how to do it. Cloris wanted more intensity. Mel wanted more silliness. They'd argue, she'd give him a look, and he'd either give in or stand his ground. The crew got used to stepping back when Cloris and Mel started talking. Despite all that, Mel kept working with her. Why? Because she was incredible. Her performances were so good, they made the fights worth it. Off set, they got along fine, but Cloris was always in her own world, thinking deeply about her characters. Mel said she was exhausting but brilliant. She didn't just act, she lived her roles. That's why she's on the list. Not because Mel hated her, but because she challenged him at every turn, and that made his movies shine. Then there's Richard Pryor, a comedy legend who almost starred in Blazing Saddles. Mel wanted Richard to play Bart, the black sheriff who shakes up a racist town. Richard helped write the script, and his ideas gave the movie its bold, in-your-face humor. He brought a raw, real edge that made Blazing Saddles a classic. But the studio said no to him starring. They thought he was too risky. Richard had a reputation for being unpredictable. Sometimes he'd show up late, sometimes not at all. He was dealing with personal struggles, and the studio didn't trust him to carry a big movie. Mel fought for him. He told the studio Richard was the heart of the film, that his humor and perspective were what made it special. but they wouldn't budge. In the end, Mel cast Cleveland Little, who did an amazing job. But Mel always wondered what Blazing Saddles would have been like with Richard as the star. During the writing process, Richard was a whirlwind. Some days, he'd come in with a million ideas, cracking everyone up. Other days, he was quiet or didn't show up. Mel said working with him was like waiting for a storm. You never knew when it'd hit, but when it did, it was electric. Richard's genius shaped the movie, even if he didn't get to act in it. Mel called him one of the most talented people he ever met, but also one of the hardest to pin down. That mix of brilliance and chaos is why Richard's on the list. Mel didn't hate him. He loved him. But the what could have been still stings. Finally, we have Anne Bancroft, Mel's wife and the love of his life. They worked together on To Be or Not to Be, a funny and heartfelt movie about actors in World War II. Anne was a superstar, an Oscar winner with a sharp mind and a strong will. On set, she didn't treat Mel like her director. She treated him like her equal. If she didn't like a line, she'd say so. If a scene felt off, she'd tell him why. Mel said directing her was like arguing with a lawyer who's also your best friend. She'd question his choices, suggest changes, and sometimes just do things her way. One time, she stopped a scene to ask, "What kind of emotion do you want here?" and waited for Mel to explain himself. The crew would watch these debates like it was a tennis match. But when the cameras rolled, Anne was magic. She brought depth and charm to every line, making even the silliest moments feel real. Mel said she had a gift for finding the truth in every scene. Their fights weren't mean. They were just two strong people who both wanted the movie to be great. Off set, they'd go back to being a loving couple, making tea and joking around. But on set, it was intense. Mel called her the toughest actor he ever worked with, but also the most brilliant. She pushed him to be better, and he loved her for it, even if it made his job harder. That's why she's on the list, not because of real hate, but because she challenged him like no one else could. So what's the deal with Mel's hate list? It's not about hating people, it's about the crazy, messy, beautiful chaos of making movies. These 6 actors, Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, Gene Hackman, Cloris Leachman, Richard Pryor, and Anne Bancroft, weren't villains. They were geniuses who drove Mel nuts in the best way possible. They laughed too much, argued too hard, or pushed for perfection when Mel wanted speed. But they also gave us moments we'll never forget. Dom's goofy charm, Madeline's perfect timing, Gene's intense focus, Cloris' fierce passion, Richard's bold ideas, and Anne's sharp honesty. They made Mel's movies what they are. At 98, Mel's looking back and telling it like it was. He's not mad, he's grateful. These actors made him crazy, but they also made him better. They turned his ideas into classics. And isn't that what great art is all about? The fights, the laughs, the tension. It all leads to something amazing. Which actor on Mel's list surprised you the most? Did you expect someone like Gene Hackman or Anne Bancroft to make the cut? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mel Brooks' wild world, give this video a big thumbs up, share it with your friends who love classic movies, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the legends of comedy. Hit that bell so you never miss a video, and let's keep the laughs going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.